Welcome back to the channel. I am Ninja Turtle, and today we've got a new video up, brand new, custom finished it a couple days ago. I needed to let it sit and do a little tinkering here and there, but my Marvel versus Capcom inspired Sentinel is complete. It is done, and I was going to go ahead and go over it. And if you're new to the channel, just in case you don't know, I make customs of Marvel Legend figures into whatever it is I like. Half the time they're Marvel characters, most of the time they're female characters, and other times they are other characters outside of comic books. But this one hits a lot of different things. This is comic books because it's X-Men, it's Sentinel, you know, Marvel comics, but it's also Marvel vs. Capcom specific because they had their own design for the Sentinel in the playable form of it, at least in the game. It never appeared in any comic book as far as I know. It's their own original design, originating in the first Capcom fighting game that was Marvel based, and that's X-Men Children of the Atom. So we went all the way back there. But this one specifically, I try to use the actual character model that's available within Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. So actually, when I was sculpting all of this stuff, I had the game up running on my TV screen, and like Sentinel's model was there, so I can see all the details and what I was trying to sculpt on there, and the music was playing, and it was actually pretty intense because I was doing it like for several hours. So that Sentinel theme music was playing for several hours, and he's just like squeezing his hands and bopping along with the beat, and it was actually kind of intense, but also super fun. Anyway, so yeah, this is meant to be a version, or my own version, of that Sentinel from Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which again, he hasn't appeared in Marvel Infinite, unfortunately, but we're not going to talk about that today. So anyway, like I said, I make my figures based off of Marvel Legends figures. So all of this, if you are not the eagle-eye viewer or just uninitiated, all of this entire thing is a Build-A-Figure, the Kree Sentry. So it came out a few years ago when the Captain Marvel movie released, and it was a Build-A-Figure. If you buy all the figures in the wave, you get pieces and so on. So this is just the Kree Sentry figure, and then I did my stuff. So I'll go over that a little bit in detail because, again, it's mostly the Kree Sentry buck. So it was actually pretty easy to find. Actually, I found it all together down the street from my house, no less. I was just driving around, and some guy had their garage door open, and I happened to look, and I saw a whole bunch of Marvel Legends on shelves in boxes, and I'm like, either he has a sick display or he's selling all of that stuff. And yeah, I straight up walked into his garage and said, hey, what's going on here? And he's basically an eBay seller, but he also does some local events. And I just happened to stumble upon him, and I was able to pick up the Kree Sentry buck for a decent price. And that's why this is the first thing that I'm making after my break, because I had no plans on doing this, but then a few weeks ago I stumbled upon that guy. So yeah, Sentinel, we're here. It is a Kree Sentry buck. It is largely unchanged, but the things that I did modify, like I said, I did do sculpting. I wanted to look a little like Sentry or Sentinel as possible. So these shoes down here, those are completely, the feet, you know, robots don't wear shoes. The feet are completely untouched. They're just repainted. So in general, I do have parts of it, because I would say I wasn't planning on it. I just wasn't planning on doing it right away. I do have parts of the Kree Sentry that I was like getting together over time, and was just going to eventually do it, but then I found it all together for a good deal. Anyway, this is the original color of that purple, and you see it's much lighter on what I painted. So everything that is purple on here was this purple color, and pretty much in the same spots for what it's worth. And then you see this lighter silverish color is where the blue is. for what it's worth. Again, it's not really the right scale. I think he should be a little bit bigger if we're going to be exact. He should be a little bit bigger. And I should have brought over the bigger characters so you can see the scaling, but I do have some smaller ones. We'll talk about that later. But anyway, all of the feet are untouched. They're just painted over, but the legs, I don't have spare legs, but I did want to go over that really quickly. So part of this is sculpted on and part is remaining. So this, like this circle part, that was already there on the figure, but all of this big piece here going wrapped around, it's all sculpted on. So I did consult again with the character model to try to get all of this detail in here. So all of this is sculpted on. I did actually have to take a Dremel to Dremel off. There's like a big chunky part that comes off the front of the leg of each of the legs there, and I just kind of actually cut it off with the cutting tool, and then use my epoxy sculpt to get this shape here, take the knife and then cut in all of these details while it was still soft before the epoxy sculpt cured up. So and even this part right here, this part is blue on the bottom of the knee or right below the knee, that's also sculpted on for the most part. That wasn't really perfect or clean. None of it really is as far as my sculpting goes, but it's just there to try to mimic what's exactly on the Sentinel. But when you go up from the knee, it is just how the Kree Sentry's legs are. So generally the Sentinel has a lot more hollow parts, or just like some more moving parts and gears and stuff. These are just kind of almost like muscular looking legs. It's, you know, I don't know how you make a robot with muscle, but that's what they did. I did want to note that there normally would be parts that extend here, because this is a Build-A-Figure. I can actually pull this leg off very easily. But right here there would be parts that extend down past this thigh cut. I cut those off again with the cutting tool and then sanded it down. I just didn't want it there. It was just something I didn't realize it wasn't going to be flush, because it's not flush. I thought it would be flush, but I still didn't want it there, so I just cut it off, sanded it down, and then just painted blue up until this part here, and then the insides are purple. So again, these are Build-A-Figure parts. The legs are all separate. The knees have double jointed pins there, so I did remove the pins. These are actually tough to get out and tough to put back in, but I did it. So there is that. It does have still full range of motion here. If I can, there we go. Still can bend plenty, just fine on the knees, on both sides. Like I said, all of this just plugs right in. This comes in there normally. I did not take the torso off. Excuse me. I did not take the torso, the upper torso and the lower torso apart. So there is some unpainted parts deep in there, but I did my best to like move his torso so I can get most of the paint in there and in there properly. As far as the chest goes, I did not. So there's two reasons. One, I didn't feel like using that much material, because he normally has this big chunky unit of a chest. I didn't feel like using that much material to modify and give him that thick chest. Secondly, I didn't have that much material to begin with. So this is the first custom I've done in a while, and before I went on break, I had very little epoxy sculpt. So I use epoxy sculpt for the sculpting detail. I had very little left, but I had enough left to do this figure. And all of this, again, epoxy sculpt here, same thing with the arms and up here and everywhere on there. It's a sculpted, it's epoxy sculpt. I had just enough to fill this in, because this normally is like an open area right here in the chest, and this piece isn't here, and so on, and back as well back here. I filled that in. I had just enough to do that. Now I did buy more epoxy sculpt. I just didn't feel like opening that new pack up and using the fresh stuff to continue to build out his chest. That's all. That's literally saving material, kind of lazy, not wanting to use new stuff. That's the only reason why. So if you were going to make your own, you know, make your own choices there. I sculpted in these holes here So there was actual holes in there with these lines. I'm thinking about still taking black paint and just painting the black holes in there, because it is black on the actual model for the character. I'm thinking about it, but I like the holes as well. It kind of, with the shadows, it gives you the black without actually having to paint it black. All of this detail here is normally on the crease entry, but it does have some more extended parts going off this torso. So I did, again, took the cutting tool and cut those down, so that way it doesn't run into the shoulder, so there's less chance for paint rub. So it's basically more flush like this, as opposed to sticking out like it normally would. Back to this arm though. So again, this is how it normally would look. I did my best to sculpt on this detail up here. You can barely see. I did my best there, but it is not beautiful. It's not perfect. Like, it gets the job done, but I would, if you're going for like complete accuracy, it would go a little bit deeper than this. It would go completely deeper than what this is. Sorry for the motorcycle or whatever the hell people were driving going past my house, but yeah, it would go further in than what I have right there. But unfortunately, I still want it to have articulation. I still want it to move and not get in the way, so I cut it off halfway. And there we also have this blue, which is pretty accurate to the model there. So back to the arm again, the original arm. This piece here is actually not glued on or sculpted on. You can take it off. What is going on is that you probably have to pry it off, would be best with a screwdriver or something like that. Maybe you want to heat it up to help out. You don't need to heat it up, but there are two like grooves or like divots into this forearm, like one on each side, and then the actual purple piece, it goes into those. So you're just basically prying it off of there. It's not glued or anything. It is difficult, but it is doable without heating it up or anything like that. But once that was taken off, I then filled that in with more epoxy sculpt, so that way get you that bigger, rounder chamber, or whatever you want to call it, this round piece going around each forearm, and then painted it like so. Also added some sculpt here on the bicep, so that way it is more accurate to the actual model of the Sentinel. And then going to the head, that also took some modifications there. So normally it has this like it's actually kind of more like a hat. It's just a weird hat that you can take off. It's just like hair on any Marvel Legend. That's really soft plastic, and you can heat it up and pry it off. I ended up just taking needle nose pliers and just pulling it straight off. And then filling in all of the misshaped head parts, just so that can be this round dome that we have up top there, and then added all the rest of this detail. The face is also been dremeled down tremendously, quite a bit. Pretty much all of the detail on the eye area, the cheek area, I just dremeled off and then added epoxy sculpt to give the shape of the face. These little line cuts into his jaw, that's normally on the head sculpt, so I decided to keep that. The jaw line itself, or I should say the chin would be more accurate. Added a little bit of sculpt there just to give it a more hard edge and more shapeliness. Added the nose and made a little bit of a mouth. It's kind of hard to see all of that, but it's there. And cut out area for the eyes, and as you can see, it's painted red. As far as the actual painting, it is also, I tried my best to be as accurate as possible to that model in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. This is just all Vallejo paint, flat blue, and then actually the red is acrylic leather paint, the Angelus red, because I don't have any Vallejo red, so I had to improvise. And this purple color, again, trying to make it look like the actual game. It is still Vallejo, but it's a mix of white violet or purple. I don't remember which one I used, to kind of whichever one is lighter, but it was still way too dark. It was still going to be closer to this color. So violet, white, and then a little magenta in there, and just mix it up to get this. I still kind of wish it was a little lighter. It looks a lot lighter in person than it does on camera, I can say that, because right now I'm looking through the viewfinder and it's like very, very dark, but trust me, it's a lot lighter in person. Same thing with the blue, it's a lot lighter. All of the finish is a satin finish, so it has a little bit of sheen to it, like it's metal. I didn't want glossy because it shouldn't be glossy, but you know, something like that. All of this detail on the torso is normally on the Kree Sentry, so you know, that's not how Sentinel looks, but it looks really cool in general. It's very mechanical, so like, why cover it up or Dremel it down or do anything like that? Leave all that really cool detail there, because it's there. It's still not going to look on brand, but you know, they're trying to make it easy. You know, it doesn't have to be that difficult. So this wasn't really that difficult. I did all the sculpting in one night, and then well, most of it, and then I finished up the head the next night. All of the painting was done in one day, and then I just did a little bit of touch-up painting with the blue here and there. I could still use a little bit of touch-up. The paint rub is still a little bit there for the most part. Like the arms and stuff are fine, but let me see. Actually, I haven't bent this arm at all yet, but for the most part, everything's fine with paint rub and stuff. Just only in the sockets here. I didn't paint much on the inside of here because, again, I never took that apart. And on the inside of the arm, it's impossible to get inside of here. So I just left it, but that's unpainted. But yeah, it's good to go. It's fine for me. So let's do a quick comparison of some figures from Marvel vs. Capcom, and then we'll get out of here. Alright, so for a quick size comparison, we have our Ryu, which is Jada Toys, which is so good. The last time I made a video of a custom, Jada Toys hadn't even announced their Street Fighter line at that point. And this was, again, my last video was in February. They hadn't even announced it, and since then, not only are we getting a bunch of Street Fighter stuff, we're getting Mega Man stuff too. They're literally helping me save so much time and effort. I was going to make Ryu. I had everything like planned. It was just figuring out how to do the gi and stuff. But I was gonna make Ryu and Ken and everybody else in Street Fighter. Now I don't have to. This is so excellent. I will be modifying a little bit of Ryu, but you'll see that in the future. We have the custom Sentinel, and then we have Marvel Legends Cyclops, which I don't remember what wave that was. Juggernaut Build-A-Figure, maybe? I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head, but you can see how they scale. So he's still plenty bigger than Cyclops. If I remember correctly, Cyclops should be about 6 feet tall. Ryu is about 5'9". So you can see how great they scale together in general. But Sentinel, I don't know what his official height is in game, but he is quite a bit taller. He is like the biggest character, the biggest playable character in the game. In Marvel 2, maybe Blackheart's a little taller. Something like that, but yeah, he still towers over them, but I think he should be just a little bit bigger. But what can you do? I don't know what other buck is out there within Marvel Legends that you could use to make a Sentinel. Now that way you could maybe reach out and do some other custom from like a different line of toys. I mean, I have no idea what's out there that would be adequate or Sentinel like. But I'm sure there's something, right? But this will still do the trick for me. Now, I did say that, yeah, he should be bigger than, like, say, Hulk and Colossus. I do have figures for those. And the funny thing is, my Hulk figure is, like, almost exactly the same size as this. It's the Toy Biz Hulk. I forgot what, it's like the 2-pack one. So, I love that Hulk, but he's literally the same height as my Sentinel. And that's not supposed to be that way. And then Groot, yeah, that's another one. The Marvel Legends Groot figure, the comic book one, is much taller than this Sentinel. Like Groot is like, Groot is way taller than this. He's like even higher than where my finger is right now. So, so scaling isn't perfect, but this is still going to get the job done and be a nice piece to have in my collection. So that does it for today's video. As far as the next video is concerned, I actually want to real quick talk about something else. It is related, and I did mention this in my preview video. There's a new technique that I was working on, and that is this. What is this? This is a piece of plastic that I painted that is completely flexible, and as you see, there's no cracking on there whatsoever. I tried 2 different shades of color, pale blue and burgundy, whatever. But the point is that I have now obtained the ability to make some soft plastic, or not make, but I have plastic that's very flexible and can be folded up and all that and not lose any of the paint and not get cracked up and yada yada. So what am I use this for? Skirts, coats, capes, anything that's going to be like, you know, like this, which is great and all, but it's hard to make something customized out of something that's already been formed. And this I can do whatever I want with, and this plus some bendy wire, which is the other thing that I have to try out, but I have bendy wire. I can do a whole lot of stuff with that as long as the bendy wire works out. So I'm very excited with the possibilities. The next custom that I am making is Madeline Pryor. It is a remake of my old Madeline Pryor plus a new costume. So I'm excited for what I can do with this for both of those figures, and hopefully everything turns out really well. So make sure you are subscribed to check that out when it's done. It is the next thing I'm working on. As far as Marvel vs. Capcom goes, I do have other figures planned that I'll be doing within the next few months, probably, that will coincide with Marvel vs. Capcom. Of course, again, Jada Toys are releasing more Street Fighter figures, so I don't have to make Dhalsim, I don't have to make Bison, I don't have to make, you know, Ken, although I will be customizing that Ken, most likely, and I will be customizing this Ryu just a little bit. You'll see that. And yeah, I'm really excited for where that's gonna go and showing off that collection. I do have videos on my channel of my specific Marvel vs. Capcom collection. You can go check that out. It's been a while since I made one, and I promise that I will try to make a new one by the end of 2023, because there will be a lot of Jada Toys to add to that. Plus, you know, Sentinel's there now, and I'll be adding some new figures. So I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching, and subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, and let me know what you think of Sentinel. Peace out.